Hello and welcome along to another episode of my favourite story from the Honest Football Podcast. Each week we interview someone involved in the professional footballing world or a personality or fan and discuss their footballing story, how they got into it, who they supported and their journey through their career. This time we've got a very unique one. A few weeks ago we were lucky enough to speak to Head of Media at Wycombe Wanderers, Matt Cecil. He's a man who helped us out greatly when we were starting out as a podcast. His support enabled us to produce our first matchday vlog and interview Mark Palios, the Tranmere chairman, in the Wycombe v Tranmere game. And that experience sort of showed us how much of a unique experience that sort of person has in a football club. And we were desperate to speak to him about how he finds his role, how he got into it, and how on earth he finds it on a day-to-day basis, working for the club he supports in that capacity. He's also got a few other unique stories to tell, partly being the youngest director ever at an EFL professional football club for some time, that again at the club he supports, Wycombe Wanderers, and of course we talk in length about his head of media role and how he ensures interactions with the fans, social media and players are able to interact and provide quality content for fans, particularly at the moment where there hasn't been any football for a few months. So it's a really unique one, this. It's been really great to talk to someone in a different field within a football club. And of course, he's been in a couple of very unique situations as well. So we really were pleased to talk to Matt and we can't thank him enough for joining us. If you do like this episode, please put a thumbs up on it. If you want to see more, subscribe down below and check out the playlist of interviews in the eye above. But this is Matt Cecil's footballing story and we really hope you enjoy it. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined by Matt now, and I'll take you back, as I do for everyone first, to your childhood and talk about your first ever footballing memories. So what is the first thing you ever remember about football, as a fan, player, whatever it may be?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I am born and bred Wycombe Wanderers supporter, so currently doing a job that I love, understandably so. I've very vague memories of my first game, but it was the 93 FA Trophy final, Wycombe against Runcorn. And what stands out for me was I was dressed in my full kit at home and I had no concept of going to watch a game of football. And all I could assume was that we were going to play a game of football. And so there we are rocking up at Wembley Stadium and there's thousands of other people around, and I'm thinking this is a big game of football that I'm playing in. And there I am with my family watching the game. But Wycombe scored after about 2 minutes. A guy called Jason Cousins smashed in a free kick, climbed up the fence because there were fences at Wembley at the time to celebrate with the fans. And it must have been at that moment I was hooked just straight away. I'm a football fan because I like this. I'm at Wembley Stadium. My team are winning after 2 minutes. So that was it. I fell into love with Wycombe Wanderers during the glory years. Martin O'Neill was manager. It just made it to the Football League. So I never saw them in the conference, but came on board just at the end of their conference era. Won the FA Trophy. That first season, my dad got us all season tickets at Adams Park. And we won promotion again at Wembley against Preston. And the rest is history. So, I caught the bug at a very appropriate time, I think.
Not a bad way to do it, to be fair.
No.
I want to talk to you about playing as well. So as a kid, what are your first memories of playing football? Whether it be competitive, just in a garden, what is it?
Yeah, I've got two brothers, one older, one younger, and we had some kids on the street as well. So we'd have everyone's got a different term for it, but the plastic footballs. It was always an air floater for us. I don't know why, an air floater. And it was two garages opposite each other with the goals, and we would just play 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. We'd have to stop every time the car came by. And that was it, out on the street at Beachfield Way. Yeah, and then we upgraded to the green at the end of the road when we were a little bit older, and then just got into football with a Saturday morning team. I grew up bigger and faster than everyone else my age, so I was twice the height of all the players I was playing against. And I was top goal scorer 1 year, I think in my first year. I had to call the penalties and corners and free kicks because I was a giant with the biggest kick, and I think that was where my career peaked at probably age 11. And after that, I put the football away and picked up a pen and started writing. And the rest has gone on from there.
Fair enough. And I guess this is the main bit I want to move on to, is going through your adolescent years, obviously following Wycombe, getting into working at Wycombe is probably a dream come true for you. But I want to talk about how you get to that process, because you start probably, as every kid does, with a dream of being a footballer or being a season ticket holder. How do you go to that thought? And when did that thought come, actually, I want to be involved in this side of the club?
I think growing up, I was always fascinated by the radio show. There's a guy called Alan Hutchinson who was the press officer at Wycombe, and for me, he was the voice of Wycombe Wanderers. He was the voice I'd hear on every radio commentary. We'd huddle around the radio on a Saturday and listen to the away games. He'd be on the pitch with a microphone. I'd always read the programme. Obviously, this is before websites. I'd always be fascinated when the newspaper landed on the doorstep every Tuesday and Friday, the local newspaper, because that was the first time you got to learn about your club and who they signed. And if a manager was sacked, you only read about it in the paper because there was no other way to hear about it. So, yeah, I wanted to be a footballer, and I was obsessed with Wycombe Wanderers and the players and everything growing up. And I was just a good writer. And at school, the teachers would always say, your writing work is exceptional. I didn't pay attention in any other lessons, but English was pretty much my forte. So I just wrote a letter, aged 16 or 17, I think it was, to Alan Hutchinson. Wrote it, printed it off, posted it off, and had a response back to say, we'd love to have you come in for work experience. So this was the summer of 2005. And I just had the best 4 weeks there. The website manager at the time went on holiday for 2 weeks, so I was empowered to run the website for a fortnight, and then started covering some games. I was there when we signed a lad called Sergio Torres, one of the most wonderful footballers, creative, inspirational, an amazing story that he'd had coming over from Argentina and working his way up. And there I am in the boardroom. We were filming him signing it, and we were doing interviews. And I'm like, this is amazing. For a football fan, just to be in the inner sanctum really gave me the bug. So I was so grateful to be given an opportunity. And I think now when I see daily now the requests that we get for work experience or internships or jobs or shadowing opportunities, I look back and think how grateful I was. And I must have timed my letter just right that Wycombe were willing to take me on. And, I'll always be grateful for that opportunity.
And I mean, to go into it in a bit more detail, talk to me about that moment where you got a response to that letter. Because as a fan, that moment must have been something else.
Yeah, and I don't think I really knew what I was letting myself in for. Work experience is probably quite often just making the tea and shredding and photocopying. So I think it was just a week-long work experience placement at the time. So I'm sure my mum ironed my best shirt and my trousers and polished my shoes, and I turned up on day one. And the website manager at the time, looking back, was a bit of a role model for me because he had a very similar background. His name was Matt as well. He'd grown up supporting the club and his family, and he'd landed, a dream job for him. And I learned so much off him in that first week. And I remember the pride of seeing my first bit of work published on the website, and it had my name on it. And this was before the days of social media. You never really got any response from fans when you were publishing work.
Yeah.
But I went home on day one of my first day of work experience and said, Mum, Dad, go on the website. You'll see my name on there. I've written something. And that was, a really proud moment. So, I just remember being in awe of the place at first, which was wonderful. And, as someone that had grown up with the club and been a mascot, I see now what I felt when Wycombe fans come on board with us and come and shadow. And they're walking down the tunnel at 10 minutes to kick off, and they're in awe because they can hear the music from the changing room and they can see the players. I love it knowing that they're getting the same buzz that I did half my life ago now, 16 years.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a week's work experience at Luton when I was at school, and you're there suddenly from being in a stand a week ago to sitting next to the manager Mick Arford while he's been interviewed, and what on earth have I got into? How on earth have I ended up here in a week? So it's a remarkable thing, and to be able to give that back to other people now must be amazing.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's hard to find roles for them to do, and quite often we have people come in and shadow us on a match day. Match days are bonkers, and they're so busy, and we're all over the place. And sometimes I have somebody that's just shadowing us and watching what we do. And sometimes I feel guilty that I can't offload tasks for them to do or explain to them a little bit more about what we're doing. But I love, at the end of those days, they say, do you know what, I've had an amazing day. I'd love to come back and see it again. It's been fascinating. And we take it for granted. And all of us that work, I think, behind the scenes at a football club take for granted what it means to be there. And the fact that, okay, not now, we're in lockdown, but at any one time during the week when I'm at the office, I can walk 10 metres outside and walk around the pitch on a beautiful sunny day, knowing that this place holds so many memories for myself, my family and the other fans. And I'm privileged to work here every day. So, we love being able to give those opportunities to people that are starting out in the industry, want to learn more about it. Some people we've had have been brilliant. Some have been not so good, and you feel that they've maybe wasted their opportunity. One lad came in to shadow for one game. He spent the whole of it Snapchatting the whole experience to his mates and not paying any attention to what was going on really, but he just knew he was lucky to be in the inner sanctum. And I think one bit of advice I'd give to anyone, those impressions do matter. There are so few jobs compared to the number of people that want one in football. If you're given an opportunity, you've really got to grasp it, pay attention, offer to help. Don't get swept away with thinking that you've made it just because you've been accepted in for one day. You really need to knuckle down. So it's been lovely. We've had some really talented people come into the club and help out and volunteer. I had a lad that volunteered with me a few years ago, now works at Nottingham Forest. A colleague that I was able to employ now at Blackburn Rovers, and quite a lot of people that we've worked with at Wycombe Wanderers have had a good start in here and moved on and made it, with full-time jobs elsewhere. So that's been really nice to see.
Fantastic. And I guess that's one of the things I wanted to move on to in your role, is probably something that I guess we had an idea of, but we didn't know the extent of until we met you at a game late on last year, which was just how involved a media person is in the club in terms of around the players on a match day, around the manager, around the tunnel, even 5-10 minutes before kickoff. It's not the sort of thing as a fan you would immediately think, but you're so involved in it.
Yeah, I think at clubs of Wycombe Wanderers' size, in terms of the number of employees that we've got, we've still got the same number of roles and responsibilities really as a Man United or a Chelsea, but they're obviously doing it on a much bigger level with far more people doing it. I think I read something a few years ago, Man United's media team was 99 people. So that includes Man United TV, the lighting, the camera staff, everything. There were 2 of us at Wycombe Wanderers responsible for the website, the social media, the programme, marketing, video creation, design work, PR, press conferences. And I don't list all those things because I want to make us sound like we're really busy and we've got our hands full. We're able to distribute our time and make sure that we do the best we can on each of those roles. But I think that's what makes it enjoyable, is that every day is different. And we get a buzz from doing that. And actually, we're not just managing a website for 8 hours a day. We're not just writing a programme. On any given match day, for example, we are writing match reports, interviewing players, filming stuff before and after the game, audio commentary, social media. There's quite a lot of skills that are involved to do all of those things. And I think working at a club like Wycombe gives us access to hone our skills in a lot of different areas. So we, if we were to leave the club environment, we actually have skills that we could go off in a lot of different directions, whether it's written journalism, video creation, PR, magazine and publications. We've got experience in all of those things, so it is fun. Sometimes you wish you had more time to dedicate to one thing in particular. I'd love to learn more video and design skills, but I've never really given myself the time to grasp those skills. My colleague Connor does most of that at the football club and leaves me to the more traditional things of writing words and putting pictures on them, whereas he does the more technical things. So it's a very diverse role. We love it, and we love riding the ups and downs of each season alongside the team, and bringing news and images and content to our fans so they can be part of it too.
Brilliant. And I guess as you're a Wycombe fan and you're involved in that role, it would be rude of me not to ask, over the years in that profession, who are the favourite players or the ones you've been most awestruck by during your time at Wycombe when you've been working with or interviewing them?
I think early on I was awestruck by everyone, just rubbing shoulders with, we had big characters like Tommy Mooney around that time, 2005, Kevin Betsy, Stephen Oakes. And these are players that I'd seen play against Wycombe while I'd been a fan, and kind of knew that they had big profiles and they played at the highest level. That does wear off in the end, and I don't think at Wycombe I've kind of been overawed by any players, but there's been so many fantastic players, and in recent years as well, the lovely personalities and characters that have come through. The one thing that always stands out for me, it was 2007, an away game at Chester, and I'd never really got to know the players on a personal level. I'd walked past them and occasionally done a couple of interviews with them. And Matt Bloomfield came up to me after the game. I was standing by the team, and he said, "You're Matt, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah," but I was quaking in my boots because it was, a footballer, and I wondered if I'd said something wrong on commentary or written about him. And he said, "I just want to say thank you. You wrote a piece about me on the website last week. I think he played 150 games for the club." And he said, "My mum, that made her really proud to read that, and I just wanted to say thank you." And I was just awestruck, really. A footballer had taken the time to come and say thank you to me. That's 13 years ago. He's still at the club. He's one of my closest friends, within the club, and he's now played 550 games, I think, and I'm still writing features about him. But that was a great moment for me to kind of almost be accepted at the club by the players, because you need their trust in the job that we do, and they need to know that they can trust you, and that any advice that we give them is going to be taken on board. So that was lovely. I'm sure you're going to ask about Akinfenwa, because everyone always does. Was I awestruck by him? No. Was I sceptical when we signed him? Absolutely. And he knows this. We signed him age 33 when Wimbledon had given up on him. And there was the whole Panto thing at Wembley where he scored the penalty and said, hit me up on WhatsApp. And I didn't know if Wycombe Wanderers were ready for this sort of character. As soon as we signed him, everyone in the industry was sending me messages saying, your life is about to change. You are going to get so busy, so many requests. This guy is, he's going to come in like a wrecking ball at Wycombe Wanderers. And I wasn't sure whether he was still good enough on the pitch or the right kind of personality. I didn't know the guy. He's been unbelievable as a gentleman, as an inspiration, as a footballer. He's a record goal scorer now in the Football League era. But I'm in regular contact with him, and he knows, and I know, that he can make someone's day. And we use that quite a lot. If there's kids that are going through a rough time, we'll get them in on a match day to come and meet him, and he is wonderful with everyone he meets, and he makes my life so much easier than I thought it would be, compared to everyone saying you're going to have such a challenge managing this guy. He's been wonderful and a real joy to work with.
Brilliant to hear. And I guess I want to lead on to one more thing as well, just to show your involvement too, which we had Joe Jacobson last week, and we were talking about his hat-trick earlier this season with set pieces.
Yeah.
And he name-dropped you as the man who informed him that the dubious goal panel had given him the hat-trick 2 or 3 days later, which just is an indicator of the little things that you can do. And you made his day that day.
We were lucky with video footage, I think it was, that we have a GoPro behind the goal. And really, it's for content purposes, that we can show goals going in from a different angle. But it was funny because on the day, he scored a free kick, and it was a regular free kick, and that's fine. And then the second one goes in, the corner, and this was debatable. And at the time, we gave it to Darius Charles, I think, on the line, because we thought it touched him. But when the third goal went in, we kind of had to undo our work on the second goal, and we thought, we need to give this to JJ. And we had the Quest TV highlights guys with us that day. So I'm running around telling the producers, like, the story here is it's a hat trick, okay? Let's not lose this moment. Let's grab the match ball, give it to JJ. If we dress this situation up that it's a hat trick, that might just help sway it and make sure that the authorities give it to him. So he claimed the match ball at the end. He was interviewed all about it. He was a bit sheepish because he wasn't sure whether they were all his. But we had this footage from behind the goal that we sent off to the dubious goals panel in super slow-mo and said, look, you can clearly see from this footage, which wasn't clear at all, but it's how you word it, this is a Jacobson goal and he should be awarded it. And then the message came through, fine, Jacobson hat-trick. And he was delighted to hear that news, and it goes down in history that way.
Fantastic. And I guess before we move on to the big questions, I've got to talk about one other moment of your career where you sort of became semi-famous. And it was another one that's probably quite a proud moment for you as a Wycombe fan, is you ended up being one of the youngest people on the board of directors at a football club. So how on earth did that happen? And how involved were you in the fan takeover at the time? Because Wycombe were in an awful position then.
We were, yeah. I mean, I'd worked at the club previously and been known to the club. They couldn't get rid of me, to put it one way. So I left early in 2012, and by the summer of 2012, the Supporters Trust had taken over the club. So I wasn't working there, but like many fans, I said, this is a wonderful evolution for Wycombe Wanderers, and if you ever need me, I'm here to help. And I kind of always continued helping the team on match days. I knew the media team really well, so I was a bit of a hanger-on, if you like. Yeah. And I had a conversation with the chairman almost in passing, and he said, look, our board of directors are all 50 plus, and we all have our different skill sets, but what we lack is a link with the younger generations and somebody that understands modern innovations and digital technologies and marketing and media. And we think you could help bridge that gap. So it took a little while. Obviously, at board level, there were loads of things going on. But yeah, October the 1st, 2013, I think it was when it was finally ratified. And it was obviously a very proud moment, and we had some media interest. BBC Sport, we had Sky Sports News cameras came to the office that I worked at and filmed me, which was nerve-wracking really, because there was 130 other people in the building thinking like, why's Matt got cameras following him? I felt a bit big time and a bit uncomfortable. But as you say, the club was in a very challenging time. I think, ironically, we were in the playoffs when I joined the board, and I think we won one of the next 20 matches. I didn't have any influence on the pitch, but it all seemed to go wrong. But there were a lot of takeover talks going on at the time, and as a whole board of directors, we weren't really able to have much influence in the day-to-day running of the club, because the biggest issue was the takeover. All the ideas that I was bringing forward were minuscule compared to the bigger picture of who was going to own the club and who was going to finance it. So I don't ever feel like I really had a chance to stamp my mark on it or my ideas on it, which in hindsight was a shame, but I understand that me coming in with ideas of new kind of membership schemes or clubs or digital innovations were always bottom of the agenda, because the top item was, we may not be able to pay staff and players at the end of this month. We need to do something about it. So it was a really eye-opening experience. I was really grateful for the opportunity, but it was really the following summer I was given the opportunity to come back to the club in a full-time role as head of media, where I probably felt more comfortable. And one of the conditions of that was that it wasn't right for me to be on the board and have a full-time position. It wasn't right to have a director working in the office full-time with everyone else, which I gladly accepted, stepped down off the board and took up the full-time job. But you're right, it was a lovely time. I think there was talk that Louis Tomlinson was going to join the board at Doncaster, and he would have become the youngest director in the Football League, and I was livid that he was going to steal my limelight. But I don't think that ever came to it. So I don't know if I ever was the youngest. I think there was a guy at Stockport younger than me in the Football League at some point. But it was a proud moment, and one that, you know, if it came up again in future and a chance to join the board of the club that I've always supported, then it would be a privilege, and I feel I'd be far more ready and knowledgeable to do it. But at the time it was probably a nice idea, but there were probably more suitable candidates out there to take on that role than me.
Fair enough. I guess that's the one thing I was going to ask off the back of it is that something you would recommend to fans in a fan takeover? If you're working in the club and you've got the skills, would you recommend that? But I guess you saying you go back is suggesting yes, isn't it?
Yeah, I was given some advice right near the start of working at Wycombe, which was get out before you resent the place. Okay, and that sounds quite sinister, but when you're on the inner workings of it all, it does change your perspectives of it. And there have been quite a lot of match days where I've wished that I was in the terrace celebrating goals with my brothers and other fans, and not be worrying because the internet connection's so bad I can't upload my match report, or when things aren't going well off the pitch and there's office politics going on, and you think, do you know what, I just miss being a fan. And sometimes I feel that way. And anyone that gets involved with a football club, you need to understand that you will get the rough with the smooth, and there will be times where actually you walk away from the stadium thinking, cool, my football club's not as great as I thought it was, or I'm not quite as proud of it as I was on Saturday when they won the game, because this has happened today. Now that's been far more rare in recent times. We've had a wonderful year off the pitch and so much positivity, and I'm more energised now in my job than I probably ever have been. But you know, it's something that anyone should think twice about. Just if they really want to get involved with their football club, the one that they've always loved, do just remember that it might not be as wonderful on the inside as it looks from the outside. So, yeah, I've got the bug. I've been involved. I probably could never detach myself from it fully. One day I may well take my boy down and have a beer in the Chairboys village before the game and watch it as a fan and not worry at all about the inner workings of the football club. But right now I feel properly immersed in it. I'm proud to be that way. And if that opportunity came up again for me to have more responsibility in the club, then it would be an honour, because I love being part of it day to day.
Good. That's what being a football fan's all about. But you mentioned being a fan, so let's take you on to some fan questions. So I'm going to ask you some quick fire ones. The favourite player you've ever had at Wycombe Wanderers?
I will go back proper nostalgic. Keith Ryan. During the 90s, I was a goalkeeper as a player, so some of the goalkeepers, but he was the absolute rock of that team. He played in every position. He scored the goal in the FA Cup semi-final. He remains one of the most wonderful human beings I've ever met. He actually sent a video message for my wedding day, which I hold very dear to me. So Keith Ryan, Mr. Wycombe Wanderers, the original Mr. Wycombe Wanderers, will be my all-time favourite, I think.
And then taking aside Wycombe, the best player you've ever seen play live in the flesh?
I mean, we played Chelsea in the Cup. Claude Makelele was outstanding. I remember it absolutely ran the show at Stamford Bridge. Funny enough, we've had some charity games down at Adams Park, and I mean, Zola, aged 40-something, was just different level. Yeah, they're the ones that spring to mind. I mean, I don't get to watch much neutral football, really. If I'm watching football, it's normally Wycombe, and it's normally League Two or League One, and there have been some good players there. But yeah, Zola in those charity games had eyes in the back of his head. There were some players growing up I just always dreaded playing against. Martin Bullock, randomly at Blackpool. Every time he played against Wycombe, absolutely tormented us. Kevin Ellison in recent years for Morecambe. I wouldn't say he's technically the best, but he always has the game of his life against Wycombe. These sorts of players you dread coming up against. John Murphy, the old centre forward, Stuart Barlow, used to always do well against us in the 90s. Yeah, it brings it all back, actually, thinking about my years growing up as a fan, and sort of glad that those players retired before they caused more harm to your club.
Apologies for that. We'll move on to the big one, and the name of the podcast. We asked for every fan, and I guess you'll probably have one in a working capacity as well, although it is the same club, for their favourite ever football games. So you can list off a couple if you've got some contenders, but what is your favourite ever football match?
Favourite one as a fan, Wimbledon 2, Wycombe 2, FA Cup 5th round replay at Selhurst Park. Wycombe won 8-7 on penalties. It was the most extraordinary game of football. I remember it vividly. We turned up late because of traffic. Wycombe had half the attendance all on one side. Red cards, injuries, last-minute penalty saves, last-minute equalisers in extra time. Getting home in the early hours of the morning, feeling absolutely drained with emotion because it was just the most wonderful night, and Wycombe Wanderers had reached the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. In a recent working capacity, Wycombe 4, Carlisle 3. We were 2-0 up at half time, had a man sent off for handball on the goal line, went 3-2 down, and equalised on 90 minutes. And then Marcus Bean, who had never scored in 105 games for Wycombe, pops up with a volley that I don't think he could recreate if he tried it 100 times. The most wonderful celebrations, absolute euphoria. I sprinted on the pitch at full time to try and film the celebrations. The camera work was dreadful, but it meant a lot to everyone involved. And that really was a big step on our road to promotion that year. So those two games for me, I will never forget.
An incredible way to end, and good that Wycombe has so many fond memories for you at a club you continue to work, obviously. So thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.